All right. I've been away for 7 weeks from this. So bear with me. I would like to reintroduce the wonderful Joy Reid. And she's going to break down. There she is, the wonderful Joy Reid. And let me get it all set up here.
Spend it! That's who we were then.
On this yet.
Here we go.
But Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and their administration, including people like Russell Vought, who is the director of the Office of Management and Budget, that's the budget-making arm of the executive branch, who had that same job in the first Trump administration. The collective plan, he's also a self-described Christian nationalist, but that's another post. Their plan is to make the 2017 Trump tax cuts that went overwhelmingly to the super rich and to big corporations, like 80% of the benefits went to the top 1%, the super rich, as well as big corporations. They're going to make that permanent. That is going to cost $4.7 trillion with a T. It's going to blow a giant, enormous hole in our deficit. In order to fund that, they're going to make you pay for it using tariffs. Donald Trump likes to pretend that he doesn't know that tariffs get paid for by the consumer, but he knows. And you know how he knows? Because he's using the tariffs as his scheme to pay for the tax cuts. And the reason he thinks that that will work is because he's clearly been told by people like Russell Vought that at the time America was great, during the late 19th century, the Gilded Age, when the super rich amassed enormous, massive fortunes, massive wealth, tax-free, that America was great, that it was prosperous. This was also the time when America was doing a lot of expansionism, going and grabbing other territories. Donald Trump digs this whole era. He thinks it's a good idea. And he's been convinced that he can have his massive tax cut, and all that has to be done to pay for it is, number one, slash the government. Cut the government down to the bones, down to its dry bones, by firing as many federal workers as possible and privatizing as many government functions as possible. Tommy Tuberville of Alabama and Senator Mike Lee of Utah have introduced a bill that would privatize the TSA, the agency created after 9/11 to secure our airports and make sure that planes aren't blown up by terrorists. They want to privatize that, turn that into a private profit-making function. They want to do that with most of government. They'd love to privatize the Postal Service. They'd love to privatize everything that this federal government does. They're cutting things like USAID, foreign aid, all these functions of government, slashing them, and a lot of those functions benefit the American people. They don't care. They're cutting Medicaid. They've got a $800 billion cut in Medicaid in mind. All of this to try to drive up as much money as possible, selling off parts of our national parks, allowing development in national parks, selling off hundreds of federally owned buildings, including iconic landmark buildings owned by the federal government and run by the Park Service. They want to sell those off, like the Montgomery bus building, where the Montgomery bus boycott is, just start selling all that off to try to raise enough money to justify this $4.7 trillion tax cut that's going to blow a hole in our deficit. And the way they think they will get the rest of the money for that, make you pay for it through tariffs, because they know tariffs are paid for by you. It's a giant shift in who pays for the federal government, from the super rich, because they're going to pay less and less and less because they're going to cut their taxes, down to working class regular people paying the bills using tariffs. Meaning you pay more for everything you buy. You pay a giant tariff tax on food, on gas, on buying cars, electronics, buying clothes, all these things that you're going to pay the tariffs on. That's how they think they're going to fund the government now instead of income taxes. Because the Gilded Age was a time before there were income taxes. Those didn't come in until 1913. before there were labor laws, including child labor laws. You see Florida already looking to bring back child labor. You see, it was a time before women had the right to vote, before blacks had full civil rights, before there was the codification of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments through the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act of 65 and 64. It was a dog-eat-dog world, and they wanted that. It was a time before disability laws, you name it. Those things didn't exist. Workers were pretty much at the mercy of their employers back then. They want that world back. And they're getting it back, little by little, and you're going to pay for it. Don't believe me? Listen to Russell Vogt, admitting
Listen to
this is the plan. It did that during the Madison Square Garden rally prior to the election. Take a listen.
We all say it as a slogan. When was America great? At the turn of the century, our economy was rocking. This is 1900, 125 years ago. We had no income tax. And all we had was tariffs. All we had was tariffs. And we had so much money that we had the greatest businessmen of America get together to try to figure out how to spend it. That's who we were then.
So you got it? We're making America great again. And you're paying the bill. Is that what you voted for? Because that's what you got. Elections have consequences. Really nasty, mega consequences. Good luck out there. Be well. Peace.
All right. All right. Yeah. That was heavy, right? My dear, dear Joy Reid. She's brilliant, y'all. They knew it, and that's why they had to take her off the air. She's my hero, and I learned a lot from her. So, I wanted to show you that, and so let's talk about this for a second. Remember, I was saying it's more complex than we think. And these folks are not only diabolical, but they're like snakes in the grass, right? So I'm going to lay off the whole non-melanated and all that. I'm going to lay off that right now because that is an issue in and of itself. I've made enough videos about that. But now let's get down to the nitty gritty for what's going on. All right. And I remember I said when I was overseas, I said it's about money. And we all know that, but I'm going to help explain what she was letting us know about right there. So, because some of this stuff is, I just like to make stuff simple. So let's think of the United States government as a company. So think of it as a business. And let's keep it simple. Let's just think of it as a small business, not a big business, but just a small business. And so let's do that. You've got the owner. You've got product that the owner that he makes, and different businesses have different things that they do. They can either be services, a product, whatever. Most cases, either services or product. Let's do this one. It's the product. So the product is, for the country, is everything that the country produces. Okay? Everything that the country produces. So anything that the country produces. We're trying to make it macro down to micro, but the micro is just, there's an owner, there's a product, the owner, product, right? And then people have to buy it. People buy it to make a profit. All right? Okay. So for us, we are the public. We are the ones that make the product. All right. Okay. Now, in order for the owner to make the owner's business to succeed, he or she has to cut the costs of not only paying us to make the product, but the supplies for the product, etc., etc. So the way that these folks are diabolical is this. We're working a way to make the product, okay? They're paying us, which can be expensive, so it takes away from their profits, okay? So how do they fix it so that they don't have to pay us as much? So far, so good? Okay. So what they do is they say, well, look, yes, you guys are making the product, and yes, we pay you, but this is what we're going to do. On your check, we're going to take a little bit more out, right, to help me, the owner, buy supplies. Right? Okay. So you got that so far? So it's like a tax. It's like a tax. We don't want to have to pay a little bit more percentage out of our check to the owner. We don't want to have to do that, right? Because we want to make money for ourselves and for our families. So every year it's a 1 more percent, and every year it's 1 more percent. Then every year it's 1 more percent that they're taking away from us in order for the owner to buy supplies so the owner can keep the business thriving. And we're okay with that because we are making money for ourselves and for our families. But then it gets to a point, and let's switch it now to what's going on in the United States, where the owner says, you know what? Yep, you've been paying me a little bit to help me get more supplies so that we all collectively can make more money. So that's the psych out, right? They're psyching you out. You're giving me a little bit more as a tax so that I can buy more supplies so that we can produce more. And then we don't really, it doesn't matter that we're working more hours. In fact, we're working overtime because that can even, and we don't mind that little percentage because we're working overtime, time and a half days, double time. And so he even throws in there, or she throws in there, we'll give you this amount of vacation to make it lucrative, to make it to appear to be an incentive for you to keep working hard. And we'll give you work this many, we'll give you this much more bonus time, or we'll give you a bonus. There's so many little things that they throw in there. All right. Snakes in the grass. So then out of nowhere, the owner says, you know what? And that's why I'm trying to keep this simple. So it's just the owner. He doesn't have a board of directors. He doesn't have shareholders. It's just the owner. Okay. And the owner walks into to wherever you guys are working, right? It could be a plant. It could be a office building. It could be out on a rig offshore somewhere out in the ocean. And that he or she says, you know, that percentage that you're paying for taxes, I'm going to have to do a really, really big jump on that. Okay. I'm going to have to do a really big jump on that because the supplies are getting more expensive and it's harder for me to get that product to us, the supplies rather, to us to make our product. So I'm going to have to take another 10%. Just add that 10% on to the 15% that you're already paying me. And we're going to call that a tariff. No, we're going to call that a tax, but it's a tariff. Right? It's tax. Wait a minute. What's the difference? There is no difference. It's just an increase in your tax. Try to keep it simple. He or she is trying to make it simple for the folks. So it's just a big increase. So then the people say, wow, So that's taking so much more out of what I bring home. Then I've got to work this much more overtime. Oh man, I don't know whether that's fair or not. But the owner is saying, and of course he goes home or she goes home to his family, and he tells his family, his members, just one owner. He doesn't have shareholders. He doesn't have a board of directors. And he says, or she says, we're going to get this much more for our family, and we're not going to give it we don't have this issue about supplies being more expensive and harder to get to us as make a profit. So he or she's talking to their own family, but the people are thinking that it's going to get more supplies, right? Does that make sense? And so kind of that's what's happening. And so I'm going to bring it home. So they're pocketing that. They're pocketing that 15% increase. So who ultimately is making the owner richer? The people. Right? That's what she's explaining. That's what's going on in the United States of America right now. They are, in fact, creating these tariffs, right? And in turn, these tariffs are a pot of money, right? A pot of money that is just sitting over here waiting for Congress to say that we're going to do this amount of percentage. We're going to lower the percentage of taxes, right? That the rich, the 1%, the super wealthy rich have to pay because they have felt over the centuries or century that they have paid the most of what's happening for the company. Remember, thinking micro, for the country in this case. So the tariffs is not being paid for by people overseas. Let's use Canada, for example, or Mexico. No, it's the people, right? The people are, hold on. The people are paying that tariff, which is a tax, which goes over and sits in the pot. And so when Congress changes the percentage that the wealthy have to pay, they lower it. Who takes on all of that cost? That pot of money that's sitting over there, right, is going to the wealthy. Trillions of dollars. In fact, I think the number that she used was 4.7 trillion. That's their goal. They're trying to get to that goal so that they can lower the taxes that the wealthy have to pay, right? And then we take the hit. So don't think that Donald J. Trump, don't think that he doesn't really know what a tariff is. He's not stupid. He is a businessman. He did go to Wharton, which I wanted to go to when I was back in my crazy want to be a financier days. He went there. So don't think that he doesn't know what he's doing. So to continue to explain what she was saying, she said it herself, but I just want to just bring it home to make it a little clear, because I try to make things a little bit more simple. She was talking relatively. In fact, I've had to listen to this shit more than 20 times and take notes because it's so much information. So back in the 19th century, right? The late 19th century. So for folks because when people say 19th century, it's a way. I know a lot of people know this, but that's really that's the 1800s. The late 1800s is what the time period that she's referring to. And then that time period was called the Gilded Age. And it was the Gilded Age because it was the Gilded Age because the owners at that time, remember I was talking about that one owner? So the owners at that time were, big companies were around, big banking, all that. But all those big owners during that time, even 1865 and earlier, who was the owners? Those were, see, I'm trying to keep it away from the whole race thing, but it's really valid because that's the time of period where they want to go back to when America was great. So when people like me say, well, what are you saying when America make America great? My thing is, there was no time for me, right, person of color, or for most people that America was great. Now, again, I'm trying to stay away from the whole race thing. But for the people that have money, it was the late 19th century. 1800, the late 1800s, including slavery time, up until what year did she say? The first year that folks started paying taxes, because back then the wealthy weren't paying taxes. It was just tariffs. But see how the name is. But even then, the tariffs were being paid by. It could have been. They were taking a hit on it too. But then when taxes kicked in, they also were lumped in with that. And because they make so much more money than the rest of us, it appears to be a larger percentage, which it is in reality, that is used to pay for the government. And that's what she's talking about. And that's why this guy continues. And we're all screaming and hollering about the tariffs, even though we know that it's that we're taking the hit. But at the same time, I think people are confused about how how this all works. So again, that pot of money is being built up because we're paying more. It's just a tax. Tariff is just a tax. So everything goes up, including eggs. So everything goes up in price to make them not have to pay taxes. That's the goal. And so that clip that she showed at the end of her video there was from Madison Square Garden, where we all, including myself, and I remember she did a whole report. In fact, that's where I saw it first, was she did a report on it. And then I saw the report, and then I did my homework, and then I went back to 1940 something, and I did the whole comparison between when that happened before in Madison Square Garden with the Nazi rally, and then this, and we were comparing, right? That looks like that's a Nazi rally. And it was in the United States, obviously, MSG. And then, oh, wait a minute, this one here did Trump just give? That looks like a Nazi rally, right? We went through all that, but we probably were listening, but we were more upset about it being a Nazi thing, which they know, like I said, they're diabolical, y'all. They know what they're doing. These are not stupid people. They're racist, but they're not stupid. So, diabolical. Have us distracted talking about that. Okay? So now let's flip it to what's going on right now. So yeah, it's upsetting that he's doing all this stuff with DEI. It's madness. It's upsetting. See, but they're like I said, they got smart people that are doing these things. They're diabolical. They're smart in a diabolical way. Okay? So those things are pissing us off with DEI and firing this and letting out criminals and doing all of that. And all of that keeps the news cycle going, right? Keeps that going. We're distracted, not only with that, but with everything else that we're distracted by. And in the background, they're doing all this chopping up the government. That's what she was talking about, down to the bones, just chopping it up. Okay? Now, I'm going to end it with this. I think you're getting the message, what I'm trying to say and what she's saying. I'm piggybacking off of what she did there. The one thing that makes me feel relatively comfortable with is these things. And I remember I told you, well, I don't know whether you saw the old video that I did on TikTok, but where I said that everybody has a red line. Everybody has a line that if you, like, we'll say if you cross that line, then this is going to happen. So my red line for when I said, no question about it, if they cross this line here, I'm out of here. And for me, it was the VA and Medicare, because and three things: the VA, Medicare, and Social Security. So those three things. In any one of them, I might be able to take a hit. 2, I'd be hurt. 3, I'm done. I'm out. I'm bailing. I have to. I wouldn't be able to live because I'm retired, right? And those 3 things I rely on. I will be relying on. One of them I rely on right now. 2 of them I'm not old enough yet. So the VA I'm relying on. I'm not old enough for Social Security and Medicare. And what I want to leave the video with this is I want to hopefully put people at ease that I don't think that they will touch Medicare. They're not going to touch VA benefits. They're not going to touch Social Security. They can't touch Social Security. That's a law. So they can't touch that. And they know that because that's our money. We put that's our money. That's like a savings account. It's our money. So because they know if they start playing around with that, they'll be lost. They will be sued by 100 million people that are eligible for Social Security. So I'm just to leave it on a good note. It's just my opinion. I don't know. Who knows what these clowns are going to do? But I'm thinking they're going to leave those alone, because if they even start even remotely talking about messing with those, then they know that their asses will be up out here. So see how there's so many different forks that they have in this road that they're in, that they're playing with us. Because when they start saying things like martial law, and we all know that martial law means that there won't be elections and he'll stay in office forever. So those kind of things I'm putting to the side right now. I'm not too concerned about that, because they know if that happens, then they will definitely be out of here in terms of being elected out or other means. Okay. So I want to leave it with that. I hope that was informative. I told you guys when I got back. Now this particular video, I've been sitting on it for a little bit. I've been sitting on this, waiting to get all my tools back up and running again. And I was sick when I got back. So I'm just starting to get my bearings, and I'm still, jet lag is kicking my ass. So it takes 2 weeks for that shit to turn around, y'all. And I'm only at week 1. So I'm still sleeping during the day and up, you'll need to know all that. But I hope this was informative. I'll see you guys in another video. Take care of yourselves.